So 2 weeks from tonight, the Duke football team will start their 2024 season, but that's not the story. Today, we got to talk about Jon Scheyer and Duke men's basketball. The non-conference schedule is finalized, and when you look at the ACC, Duke looks pretty well positioned going into the new year. I think we're going to see a lot of excellent basketball in Durham set to be played this year.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, the host of the show. Today is Friday, August 16th, 2024, as we're getting set for an exciting college football season. In just 2 weeks, Duke will kick off their new season under head coach Manny Diaz. But today we talk basketball and what will it look like for Jon Scheyer's squad going into a new season. And our good pal Brendan Marks of The Athletic is set to join us. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free. Wherever it is that you get your podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Really do appreciate the time that you take to type out those reviews for us. It means a whole lot. Watch the show each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video, share it with your friends. Again, your support in any form or fashion means a whole lot. And for updates regarding the show or to send us questions into the mailbag, follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. So without further ado on this Friday, really excited to welcome in a longtime friend of the program. He's Brendan Marks of The Athletic. And Brendan, it's great to see you once again. Fall is in full swing pretty much here, and that means college basketball will be here before we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me as always. It's been a while. I'm past my annual summer hibernation and starting to come out and get ready for basketball season already. You know, teams will be practicing here soon, so gotta get set.
Well, look, you reset during the summer, much like these college basketball rosters reset during the summer. We talked about it a good bit over the last few weeks, just the work that you and some of your colleagues did over there at The Athletic, profiling what exactly this summer looked like in regards to the transfer portal, had commentary from players and coaches and agents at this level now, which is crazy to think about. But man, it really has been an offseason of change yet again when you look at the rosters ahead of this new basketball season.
Yeah, it has. You know, every year since the transfer portal was sort of, brought into existence, we've seen these transfer numbers just continue to grow and grow and grow. And, increasingly recently, the money is doing the same thing. It's growing and growing and growing. And, I think that's the number one thing that, you mentioned a couple of stories that myself and my colleagues did at The Athletic, but I think that's the biggest thing we learned is that so many people, when they think about roster building, they think about, is this guy a good recruiter? Does he build those relationships? And that used to really matter. Not to say that it doesn't anymore, but, salary cap management is a huge piece of what it takes to build a modern college basketball team. So you definitely saw, a lot of change at Duke, a lot of change, a lot of other places in the ACC. And, every sort of, I feel like this time of year, every single year in August, we got to reset the deck and say, okay, who is where, who's actually on which roster, which recruits came, which did it. So it's interesting getting to look at all of it, but certainly no, every summer things continue to change and it'll be the same way next year. This is the last year with the COVID year of college basketball eligibility. So next summer will be a whole new game, but we keep adjusting, we keep moving. That's the name of the game.
So talking Duke specifically, when you look back at that 2023-2024 squad ahead of this upcoming season and the turnover that took place, in your opinion, how did we get here? How did that happen with so many guys exiting the program and opening up the door for a couple of new players outside of the incoming freshman class to join the team ahead of the year too?
Yeah, I kind of look at, I think a lot of people were panicked and are not as panicked anymore because they saw what Jon Scheyer was able to do in terms of backfilling the roster. But those departures to me, I kind of put them into three different categories of departures. Number one are, go and make the most of your second opportunity. And the guy that I would definitely put at the top of that list is someone like a Jeremy Roach. Jeremy Roach had been at Duke for 4 years, had obviously been a focal point, had been a captain, has bridged the eras between K and between Scheyer. been to a Final Four. Like, there's not a whole lot left for him to do in a Duke jersey at this point. And so now he's in another great situation at Baylor where he's going to be a featured piece. He's going to be in a different system. He more than gave his time to Duke. And so I think that's one of those situations where go make your money, take advantage of your last year while you can. Jeremy Roach is going to set himself, I think, up better for a professional career in whatever respect that looks like at Baylor than he would have this season at Duke, just given the other pieces they had coming in. The second sort of bunch that I look at are the guys who maybe would not have played as much as they were used to playing. So somebody like a Mark Mitchell, I think, falls into that. Cooper Flagg's coming in. I'm sorry. The same position as Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is going to play over you. You've been an every game starter for 2 years, but you might not be that this year. If you're not okay with that, see if that opportunity exists for you elsewhere. And he would have been a piece for Duke this year, and they would have made him and Cooper Flagg work. But at Missouri, he's going to be the piece. And surely, I'm just speculating here, but I'm sure that he is being handsomely compensated to do so. Same as Jeremy Roach. And then the third bundle I would put into the sort of young and unproven category. And those are guys who you want to prove it. And maybe necessarily like they weren't willing to prove it to the level that Jon Scheyer wanted to hear it. And so, you see some high profile recruits go off and test new waters. And I think that's all okay. Like, we hear so much about how it's a new season every single year. It's a new team every year. It is. And while you would love to keep these guys for multiple seasons, that just isn't the reality anymore. And so Jon Scheyer's got 9 months with Cooper Flagg. You needed to maximize the talent around him. For various reasons, guys opted to leave. And I think the way that he rebounded and sort of plugged holes to accentuate Cooper Flagg's skill set, I think he did a really nice job cleaning things up.
Yeah, players leaving opens up a couple of holes within the roster, and Duke does exactly that in filling those spots. And even still, with the additions and the help of, Cooper Flagg is going to be a part of your team, many people believe that this Duke basketball team is set to be a part and atop the ACC this upcoming season. There's a little teaser for folks out there as we'll step aside for our first time out. Brendan Marks has more for us on that when we come back here on this Friday episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Fall is fast approaching. College football is right around the corner. And FanDuel this summer, going into the fall, is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So right now, head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. You've got college football future bets, the same with the NFL. And don't forget, every single day, we've still got Major League Baseball action happening. A lot of exciting MLB games as the postseason hunt is on. Many teams chasing down division titles and those last wild card spots. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. And so with this new roster in particular, Jon Scheyer's got work to do in the transfer portal. Guys leave, but by way of the transfer portal, a couple of new additions are able to join the team. How do they best fit, Brendan? How do these guys in particular make Duke a better basketball team going into the new season?
Yeah, I feel a little bit like a broken record saying this, but everything as it pertains to Duke this season has to revolve around Cooper Flagg. He's the best player in the team. He's going to be one of the best freshmen in the entire sport, maybe one of the best players in the entire sport, period. And as a reflection of that, everything that Duke did in the transfer portal was meant to accentuate his talents and build around him. So you bring in a guy like Mason Gillis, has experience that Duke desperately needs, has played at a very high level of college basketball, just came off a national championship game appearance. If Duke is trying to get to that point, they need someone who's been there before. Talk about a three-point shooting. Cooper Flagg, somebody who excels finishing inside. The three-point shot has come along, but you want to be able to space the floor for him. Mason Gillis can do that. And then again, somebody who on the defensive side of things can take some of those bigger bodies, can handle some threes or fours and sort of free Cooper up to do more center fielder stuff, which is where he excels defensively. Again, same sort of deal. Malik Brown is gigantic. He's going to be able to take over those tough defensive assignments for Cooper Flagg and let Cooper sort of roam a little bit more. I think the Malik Brown addition is super interesting because if he ends up being a starter, which I think there's the potential for, he's going to be a huge player for this team. you're talking about a team that I believe, I need to double check this, so somebody can fact check me. I believe Duke this year is going to be the first team since Florida State in like 2010 that does not have a rotation player under 6'5". So they're going to be gigantic. And Malik Brown as a 4, as a 5, he gives you that length. He gives you that defense. This is going to be a team much more cut from the same cloth as Jon Scheyer's first team than from his team last year. Think length, think defense, think grinding out games. Clearly that has been the pivot. And then in Sion James, you get another guard. You get somebody who can supplement Caleb Foster, somebody who can supplement Tyrese Proctor, get downhill, get inside. Again, a great defender, has this huge, crazy like linebacker body. All three of those guys, I think, are really good additions. They're all going to be, impactful players for Duke this season.
So those three guys, freshman class, headlined, of course, by Cooper Flagg. Haven't even mentioned Duke's two guys who actually are returning from last season's team, and Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor. And this is completely eliminating a really difficult non-conference schedule that has now been kind of finalized. When you look at Duke specifically, why are they one of the top teams in the ACC, Connor? It's a conference that they have often loved being at the top of, with new teams even joining the league this season for the first time ever. Why is Duke in a spot to still be there at the top?
Yeah, I think, I don't think Duke is going to be the best team in the ACC right when the season starts. But I think what you're talking about with this team is one that, as has been the case the last 2 seasons under Jon Scheyer, has gotten better and better as the season's gone on. And you do have a lot of youth. You do have a lot of new pieces. Like we mentioned, there's only 2 returners, Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor. But by the end of January into February, you're talking about a team that has everything you need to win a national title. They have high-end, top-end talent. Cooper Flagg, again, like I know Duke fans are so excited to see this guy. I am equally as excited. I've seen him play plenty, but what he's going to do in college, I'm fascinated just how impactful he can be. He is going to be, I firmly believe that the circus surrounding Duke and him this year, it's going to be the closest thing we've seen since the Zion team. He is that transcendent and special talent. When you have that top end talent, you also need role players. And some of those guys that we just talked about, Mason Gillis, Malik Brown, Sion James, those guys are coming in to be role players, but they're impactful ones. They're experienced ones. You do still have youth that can get better as the year goes on. In addition to Cooper, Kaman Malwak, I think is going to get a lot better as the year goes on. Obviously, just came off playing in the Olympics with South Sudan. Isaiah Evans, I think, is a guy who's going to continue to get better. There's been a lot of hype about Con Knuppel already. I think he's going to continue to get better. And so you're talking about a team that has top-end talent. It has role players who are willing to accept those roles. It has 2 players back who have been through the gauntlet before. You have experience. You have youth. You have a little bit of everything you need. To me, this is a team that by like the middle of February, I think can really be peaking. And again, like has shooting, has size, has length, has defense, has multiple ball handlers. Like there isn't really anything this team, at least on paper, is lacking. And so I think that's why you're going to see Duke continue to be, at the top of the ACC in most rankings. And, from a national perspective, probably in most people's top 5.
Yeah, a couple of years into this now, we're used to Mike Krzyzewski not being the guy on the sidelines at this point for Duke basketball. 2 years with Coach Jon Scheyer. You know him just about as well as anybody in the biz does, Brendan. Looking at the past couple of seasons, and then to your point, this year, why is there that confidence that this non-conference schedule is impressive, but difficult in so many ways? But Jon Scheyer, the head coach, he gets his teams better throughout the course of the season. That more so speaks to kind of the X's and O's that he's able to see throughout the course of a year.
Yeah. And, I think it's been interesting because, you heard, I think towards the end of Coach K's tenure that he maybe wasn't, there was this idea that maybe he was rolling the balls out a little bit. And Duke is still sending guys to the NBA like crazy. And, with John, not that was the right idea, but with Coach Scheyer, it's kind of been the opposite idea. Guys are still going to the league. They maybe haven't been to the same extent that they were under Coach K. That'll change this year, obviously. But the teams have gotten better and better and better. You had the ACC title the first year, obviously almost making it, within 20 minutes of a Final Four last season. So they have gotten better. I think the thing that, for me, the thing that John understands about the non-conference is, given where the ACC has been the past couple of years, you don't want to take any chances that just being in that conference, if some perennial players don't live up to their billing, as Louisville had been the past couple of years. I think Louisville is going to be much better this year. But, the last 2 seasons playing Louisville was a no-win situation, because even if you beat them, you didn't gain anything. And if you lost to them, it was a terrible loss. It was an anchor on your resume. By bookending his season, by having these non-conference games, not just in November, and that is a gauntlet of a slate. I mean, at Arizona, Kansas out in Vegas, Kentucky, Auburn at home. Like, these are really, really good teams. But also being able to get a game at MSG against an Illinois team that I think is going to be very good in February, like having that late schedule quad one opportunity to reaffirm who you are against that level of competition. Like, it's all about building and trying to win 6 games in March. So I think John gets that the ACC has not always sort of lived up to its billing as being this historically deep conference. And he's taken steps with this non-conference schedule to sort of buoy Duke's resume. And also to get this team ready. Like, they're young. These guys need to see what it's like to play against an Arizona, a Kansas, a Kentucky. If you do that in November, by the time March comes around, it's not as big of a surprise to you. So I think he's taken the right approach. And clearly, ever since he's been the head coach, he's been aggressive about scheduling the non-conference.
No doubt about that. I mean, you got to be really excited about what Duke can accomplish this season going into a new year under head coach Sean Shire, headlined by Cooper Flagg, being tested in the non-conference, and the ACC. Looking at the ACC as a whole, we'll step aside for one more timeout. When we come back, Brendan's going to tell us the other teams in the league that Duke should be wary of, what the rest of that picture sort of looks like, as we're getting closer to an exciting college basketball season. One more timeout on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, my favorite place, and it should be your favorite place when it comes to buying tickets. They're an authorized ticket marketplace now for Major League Baseball, in addition to so many other sports, comedy, concerts, theater events, and so much more. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. The ticket prices go down the closer that it gets to first pitch for MLB games and so much more. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They've got zone deals where you could save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. You could save even more with the exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of your game or event. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and it's the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back in. Final few moments of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson being joined today by Brendan Marks of The Athletic. You can follow him on X at Brendan R. Marks. And we're talking about Duke's positioning within the ACC footprint going into a new year. Got a couple of new basketball teams to make up the league this season, Brendan. The numbers just keep increasing.
18 teams, baby. Can't wait to go out to Stanford for an ACC game. I mean, they got to change this from Atlantic Coast Conference, man. It's hilarious.
It is silly what we've gotten ourselves into here in the new year. But look, we've got a league in the ACC that's got Duke right there at the top. The team down the road in Chapel Hill positioned themselves well for another exciting season. Is it a 2-horse race and a couple of behind? Is there anybody else that you'd kind of put there at the tier as Duke and UNC, or how do you view the top of the league?
Yeah, I think Duke has got to be the front runner going in, just because, again, Cooper Flagg, like learn the name, folks.
Sure.
But I think North Carolina is right there too. And as we saw last year, I mean, North Carolina was the best team in the ACC last year. It wasn't particularly close, in my opinion. Duke struggled a little bit last year to deal with North Carolina's offense. And, North Carolina is the team that, for as good as Cooper Flagg is going to be, North Carolina's got a guy who's already produced at the highest levels of college basketball. RJ Davis is, he might be the preseason national player of the year because he was so good last season. I don't think he's going to have to do quite as much for North Carolina this season. But the Tar Heels are going to be fascinating. They're going to be fun. They're going to be fast-paced. It's going to be a little bit more of an undersized team. Actually, North Carolina this season is probably going to look a little bit like Duke did last season. You're talking about probably starting, 3 sub 6'5" guards. So you're going to have RJ Davis, obviously, is 6'1"ish. You're going to have Elliot Cadeau, who's 6 foot, 6'1"ish. And then Ian Jackson, their top 10 recruit, comes in and will probably start at the 3. Has already earned, rave reviews coming out of high school. First summer on campus, he's already impressing people. Cade Tyson comes in as a transfer from Belmont. He's actually the highest rated transfer by The Athletic in the entire ACC. Absolute sharpshooter, career 45% from 3, just a knockdown guy. Not the biggest. It's probably better suited as a 3 than a 4, but Carolina is, I think, going to have to play him some at the 4. But North Carolina doesn't really have a front court answer, which is why I think if you're a Duke fan and you're hearing about all that length and that defense, You've got to be excited. There are other teams that I think are in the mix. Those two are pretty clearly 1 and 2 for me. Louisville, I think, is going to be fascinating. Cardinals do not return a single player off of last season's roster. Completely reset the deck. And yet, in terms of production, in terms of returning ACC minutes or returning Division I minutes, in terms of returning career 3-pointers made, in terms of, production in college basketball, Louisville is the most experienced, the most productive team in the entire ACC. What does that look like when you put 12 new pieces into a pot? I don't know. Pat Kelsey, obviously being a new coach too, doesn't make things any easier to project, but I think Louisville will be good. They got some really nice pieces in the transfer portal. Chucky Hepburn, Terrence Edwards. They're good pieces there. And then, there's some others who I think will be in the conversation. Wake Forest, Miami. I'd expect both those teams to be tournament teams this year. We just put out an ACC basketball ranking at The Athletic yesterday. And, really any team down through like number 11, I could see having an argument for making the NCAA tournament. It's going to be a relatively deep league this year. Teams like NC State reloaded after the Final Four run, but to me, Duke and Carolina are clearly 1 and 2. I think they sort of are in a tier of their own, at least in the preseason.
It'll be exciting to watch this team play throughout the course of an ACC schedule. We've got so many of those big rivalries. And for Duke, you mentioned the transfer portal in particular. Now they're going to have some players that played for them last season and are in the league competing elsewhere. When you think about TJ Power, they're at Virginia, and Jaden Schutt is at Virginia Tech, Blake's. I could go
Christian
on.
Reeves at Clemson.
Right.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere now within the league. So that's a new kind of interesting dynamic that we'll see take place this season.
It is. And, I think for me, as somebody who covers the sport, I don't know how it is for Duke fans, but I would want to see those guys do well. And I think they will do well. I think TJ Power, especially at Virginia, Virginia desperately needs him to be a star. He is going to get all of the reps that he didn't get last year at Duke. I think that he could make Virginia really dangerous. And, I'm probably lower on them than the consensus, but Tony Bennett always figures things out. And he, I think especially, is poised to have a really breakout year just in a new situation.
Yeah, so looking at the ACC, it is just so interesting with other Duke players on other teams. You've got Duke and North Carolina at the top of the league. You've got Louisville up there as a team that's threatening to be a contender this season, which is so different when you think about the new coaching staff that's there, new players in place. Maybe it's the same athletic trainer. I don't know. It might just be a whole new squad walking out there with Louisville basketball as one of the worst teams in the league. So before you go, Brendan, we got to know then who are going to be kind of those just bad teams. Who do you expect to be kind of down at the league?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for a couple of the newcomers, especially. Stanford especially, I think, will probably struggle the most of the 3. They only have 1 player in their roster with 2,000 career minutes. They got back Maxime Reynaud, who is kind of like their only consistent player. And obviously also welcoming a new coach in Kyle Smith coming from Washington State. So Stanford, I think, is going to struggle.
A lot of playing time for Jalen Blakes then, man.
There sure is. And then, one other that I feel bad saying so, but Florida State, man, I really have trouble seeing Florida State having a good season. They just have so few proven contributors, so few guys who have played and been successful at the Division I level. Leonard Hamilton is a great coach, but it would take one of his best coaching jobs to have even sort of a league average team. So those are 2 teams I think are going to struggle, unfortunately. I'd love to see Florida State be good again, but don't think it's in the cards for this season.
Brendan, we've talked a lot about the ACC, Duke right there at the top. For the rest of the league, though, you've got a story up on it. How can people go and support? And then also tell us a little bit about what other things you might be working on with college basketball right on the horizon.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all of my stories are at theathletic.com. I'm biased, but I think we have the best sports writing staff in the world. You get all my stuff, but you get all of the rest of our college stuff, college football, college basketball, college baseball. You get all sorts of, you get professional leagues, everything. And then I'm on Twitter at Brendan R. Marks. I try to interact with folks. Come be nice. If you're mean, I won't interact with you. And then, it's preseason time. So it's starting to go to practices, talking to coaches. Had a phone call with a certain coach from Duke a couple of weeks ago, got a little intel on the team. So, this is the time of year when people are starting to formulate what their teams are going to look like. It's fun for me.
We love to hear it. Go check it all out. Brendan, thanks for stopping by. We'll do this again soon, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, that's Brendan Marks of The Athletic joining us here on today's show. It's always great for him to stop by and give us his time. Go support the work. Follow him on socials. And we'll have him on again here shortly. That's going to do it for today's show. We'll talk to you coming up soon. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.